What happened at the biggest indoor discus competition in the world? New NCAA leaders emerge in the shot put and the weight throw. And we pay tribute to a legend who changed the sport of throwing for generations to come. All this and more on this week's Throw Show. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Throws Show. I'm of course your host Jason, joined as always by the People's Champ, Olympic trials competitor. He is the head throws coach of youth development at Garage Strength and Throws University. We have Coach Sam Weeks.
What it do?
Sam, you and I had an eventful weekend, didn't we?
Correct.
We just finished off the Spire clinic and competition that we talked about last week's last throw show. You competed in the discus throw. Coach Dane Miller coached a majority of the Garage Strength athletes there. We had elite competitions. We had high school competitions. Some of the best throwers in the nation competing, as well as a clinic the day after in which you can actually watch Dane Miller's lecture currently on the Throws University YouTube channel. If you're watching this video, that video has already been uploaded. So if you want to learn how to improve your shot put and discus technique, I highly recommend giving that video a watch. We also have a learn by do session that will be going out next week that you can look forward to. But Sam, you had your opener this year. Defending champion from last year. How did this year go?
Not as great as last year. I think I performed okay. I went in with a little bit of sickness, and I slept weird a couple days beforehand, so my shoulder hurt a little bit. But not to put excuses out there, but it was okay. I was happy with what I was able to do with the circumstances, but if we're talking about performances, I think I could have done better. But just being in the atmosphere of just the competition and just throwing discus in January, you can't be upset with that. I think what we're doing right now is really good for the longevity and setting up for outdoor nationals. But I think there are a lot of stuff that I could have done better. But I think the biggest thing was obviously I was sick that whole week, and my shoulder was bugging me, just laying down hurt. So, it wasn't the greatest, but I mean, like I said, just being amongst everyone, there were a lot of great throws out there, especially for being indoors, off a wooden circle. It was different last year. We were off of concrete. So, I mean, there were a lot of great things, and just being in that atmosphere with a lot of other great throwers who, excuse me, who did really, really well. I can't be upset. Even if I didn't perform as well, just watching other people throw, I think is just as satisfactory for me, at least.
No, that's totally fair. And we actually have a video of your throw right here that we can take a look at. This is actually from our live stream. We live streamed both elite competitions as well as both college competitions in the shot put and discus at this event. So if you're interested in watching those competitions in full, they're completely free. They're on demand on our Throws University YouTube channel. Just make sure you go to our live tab and you'll be able to watch these competitions in full at your leisure. And as we look into this,
we don't like to talk about certain things in meets, especially as a coach.
Yeah, you can see my series isn't as great. I don't know what that fourth mark is. I know for a fact I did not throw 39 meters, but whatever. Yeah, no, I was just, this last toss was just digging myself out of the hole, getting the people going, just putting it all together. And, that's exactly what I did. I had my best one and my last one. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. It's a win for me, granted everything. And I was like, all right, finish off on a high note. And then I always tried to, be a little showboat in front of the camera a little bit. So that's just showing having fun, whatnot.
I mean, that's still a solid result for it's January.
Yeah.
You're not looking to really start going hard until late spring, early summer.
Yeah.
So you still got quite a few months to develop. And I want to say shout out to the commentator there, University of Pittsburgh throws coach John Yeoman. Him and I actually were kind of like rivals in high school, throwing against each other. We both graduated Pennsylvania year 2013, so him and I traded a few meets back and forth. He ultimately won out at the outdoor state meet, but I'm glad to say him and I have a good relationship to this day. But he did a phenomenal job on commentary this whole weekend. So shout out Coach John Yeoman. I hope you're willing to do more broadcasting work because I thought you killed it. But I wanted to highlight the winner of the men's competition here, Allan Defalci. So this guy was a former University of Alabama thrower, and he kind of talked to Dana a little bit after the comp, just kind of seeing where he's at and stuff like that. But this guy's really solid movement. He's out of Brazil. Talked to him for a little bit. Really nice guy. Threw over 57 meters here. I think at his best, he's thrown about 62 meters when I was at Alabama. I kind of want to go back here. We don't really have any replay, but what do you think of his technique?
I like his technique. I was able to talk to Allan before and after the competition, and he's definitely a very nice guy. Like he was super just like warm, warm, with our conversation, and obviously he competed extremely well. He went 57, which was the furthest toss on the guy's side, breaking the the Throws America Discus record, which is obviously a huge accomplishment.
Originally held by yourself.
Originally held by myself. But no, like he competed well. Like he moves extremely well. He transfers a lot of the energy, created out of the back into the delivery, which is a big key skill for throwing discus far. Obviously this is indoors. I think, add a little bit of wind, and that's probably closer to 60 meters.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he did extremely well. Him and amongst some of the other, competitors in this competition, they all did well.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about him is he's actually still, he's still pretty young, early 20s. And as we talked about in the men's discus throw, it's like a lot of these guys don't peak for another 10 years.
Yeah.
I know we always, joke about Mikolas, but it's like for most cases, most discus throwers, you see that with Alex, you're seeing that with Sam right now. They're hitting their peaks early, mid-30s. And, there's still a lot of room for Allan here to grow.
Absolutely.
And they actually kind of did a mixed elite women, mixed elite men competition here. And who we have up here is, probably the biggest talk of the town when it came to the junior side of women's discus throwing the last few years is Julia Tunks out of Canada. Her father was obviously Jason Tunks. He was a multi-time Olympian. But at the age of 18, she's already thrown 62 meters. Mm-hmm. And now I think she's gone fully committed to just competing for Canada. And, she walked away with the victory here at over 58 meters 30. Had the privilege to talk and hang out with Julie a little bit in Tokyo. Very nice. Obviously incredible thrower. And, the sky's the limit for her with her being, so young. I think she's 20 now. I don't think she's a teenager anymore. But, 58 meters indoor for the win. What do you think of Julia's technique here?
Yeah, no, I've always liked Julia's technique. I like the Tunks system that they have going on. It's proven to work, obviously, with Julia being the leader of that. Yeah, no, dude, she went 58, and she went 58 a couple times in this competition. So, her technique is clearly on fire right now. I think she's another individual, like, if there was a little bit of wind, dude, like, that's easily,
60
like,
meters,
61, yeah. Probably closer to 62. Like, she was grooving throughout the whole competition. I knew going into this competition that she was probably going to throw the furthest out of everybody, and she did just that. I like her movement. I think she's in really good shape, and, I think, obviously, outdoors is going to be starting fairly soon. I think she's ready to go big.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if she competes at Ramona this year,
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. And what's interesting you said there is, everyone kind of expected her to win going into this competition, but she was actually this was a harder comp for her than I think she originally expected. As we see someone that, not too many people really knew about going to this comp, I had to look her up, is Taylor Gorum. She was an athlete that went to the University of Alabama. From what World Athletics says, her personal best is over 56 meters.
Mm-hmm.
And it said their last recorded result was from 2023. So it's been like 2 years since apparently she's competed. She's a post-collegiate now. And she went into this competition, you know, as you could see from those results on the board, like pretty good meet for someone who threw 56 meters.
Mm-hmm.
But what she ended up doing here was absolutely insane. She goes over 58 meters on this throw.
Yeah, she smacked it.
58-11. And then what you won't see is she had her round 5 throw where she threw it so high it hit the top of the ceiling, and she had to get a rethrow. That, like, you have to understand, like, I know it's indoors, but these ceilings are so high. Like, you have to really be chucking that thing to get it, you know, to that height. But she basically walks away with almost a 2-meter PR at an indoor meet.
Yeah. After
not supposedly throwing for 2 years, or at least in competition hasn't been throwing. I was very impressed by her. Like, as you said with Julia, like that's a 60-plus meter throw outdoors. What do you think of Taylor's throwing here?
Yeah, so I actually watched. I was exactly at 12 o'clock when she threw this throw. Mm-hmm. And as soon as it left her hands, I was like, yo, that is far. Obviously, I didn't know how far, but like I knew that was the one. And then when they went 58, I was like, wow. And I immediately went over to her and I was like, yo, like Taylor, like I really like your technique, bro. Like you're killing it. Mm-hmm. And you know, obviously she did really well. She did hit the ceiling. I think her thumb was just up on that one, but you know, I'm really excited to see what she does, you know, come this outdoor season. Obviously, you know, we have a lot of women on the discus side who have been throwing far, and I think Taylor's going to put her name amongst that conversation. You know, especially if she goes to Ramona and, you know, some of the other competitions with some of the top dogs. And I'm very excited to see what she does.
Yeah, it's exciting to see just where women's discus throwing is going right now in the United States. Like, the depth has, like, since Valerie really started blowing up, like, the last few years, the depth has only gotten better with athletes like Lagi, Gabby, Veronica, Jaden. Like, all those women throwing in excess of 68 meters. And now you have another woman who, you know, from what we can tell, is likely in 62-meter shape right now in January. So it's like, when come outdoors, like, you know, given where she's at this point of the season, add a couple meters to that she throws at Ramona, like you said, and let's like, now we might have another 65-meter woman.
Yeah,
like,
I will say.
It's crazy.
Like, I think going outdoors, like, I think, you know, all it takes is one. I think that toss outdoors is probably like 60, 61. Excuse me. And then obviously get in great shape, go to Ramona, that becomes like 64 to 65, you know, in the right conditions. So I'm very excited to see what these athletes are doing because, you know, throwing indoors is kind of tough. Like,
oh, yeah.
You know, especially off of a wood circle, like these are some of the stuff that you don't normally do outdoors. Yeah. So like to throw that well indoors means that you're in really good shape.
Yeah, keep at it, Taylor. If you're watching, like, well done. You absolutely killed it, and you've really put your name out there, and you took advantage of the stage you were on. Well done. So we're going to go into some of the garage strength athletes. The men's shot put team showed up this weekend. I'll tell you what. So without giving too much detail, you know, we saw Tamman Johnson walk away with the win over 20 meters 16. Eric Favors competes for Ireland, garage strength 1995. Jordan West here, he was a sole representative for garage strength at the Indoor National last year, throwing 1965 as opener. And Jeff Klein, who's been struggling the last year or two as a post-collegiate, trying to find the distances he had in college, finally showing that form again, throwing over 19 in his opener. And Lucas Warning, the perennial glider, America's favorite glider, still at it. He's showing no sign of slowing down. 1864 is his opener. Knowing Luke, like, he's known for just peaking insanely well. Mm-hmm. So give him a couple more meets. I have no doubt he's going to hit that, qualifier for the Indoor National. But what's also cool is I think Nick Curtis also opened up and threw 20 meters representing garage strength. So as of right now, we have 4 people that have hit the queue for indoor nationals in the men's shot put representing garage strength, and I think Lucas is right behind them and will likely do it as well. One thing I want to say though, without again giving too much detail into the situation, what's crazy about this is Tamman won 20 meters, but Tamman's been dealing with a quad injury the last few weeks, to the point where he wasn't sure if he was even going to compete here. But he was feeling pretty good like a week leading up to it. Him and Dane have been really cautious about trying to address that injury. And I think he says, like, man, if I could just get close to the qualifier, I'd be happy. And not only did he get close to the qualifier, he threw a meter over it and thrown over 20 meters for the win. Mm-hmm. Honestly, what I'll say is, if you guys have a chance to come and watch our guys throw, they put on a show, because I thought this comp was so fun to watch. And they got the whole crowd involved. Like, we probably had like at least 100 people, doing the clap for these guys on almost every throw. What'd you think of this as, a coach, friend, teammate, and just fan of watching these guys compete?
Yeah, no, to piggyback off what you were saying, like the energy was definitely high, from round 1 all the way to round 6. And that's something that you're going to get with the GS guys. They're all super competitive. Like, we're all cool. We all represent the same brand, but at the end of the day, we all want to win.
Yeah.
And that's the energy that they bring to every competition. So, like, you can be cool, but, like, you're going to pop off. And, like, when you do pop off, you're going to pop off in your teammate's face. Like,
yeah.
You're going to bring that energy, bring that excitement. And when, you're doing that and there is a crowd around you, they're going to feed into it and they're going to make it even more of a spectacle. And I think that's exactly what this competition was. And, this was live streamed. So, like, if you really want to see, like, what we're talking about, you can watch it on the Throws University YouTube page. But, all of them were attacking it. And, like, I think my MVP personally is Jeff, based off of what, last year looked like for him. Like, he really lined it up. He hit, that big toss over 19 and kind of just, like, proved to everyone, like, hey, like, I'm back.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of had to take a step back last year, but I just put my head down. I got to work. I did my thing, and, notice me. Like, I'm going to be one of these guys. And I was extremely happy for him, and obviously the rest of the guys, like, I know they're going to continue just doing great things. And, I think GS is going to be on the map for obviously indoor nationals, but I think all of that energy is going to definitely carry over into the outdoors.
What I'm excited for is, with this being an off year, and chances are, like, athletes like Ryan Krauser won't compete at the national. He's still coming off the injury despite what he did at Worlds, but also historically Joe Kovacs doesn't compete. I'm, like, thinking, like, man, can we get, like, 5 guys in that final? Like, I think we're going to have 5 guys qualify, but it's like, of those 5, 3 of them have basically thrown about 21 meters. No, 4 of them. Jordan West, his PR is 2089. Nick Curtis's PR is over 21. Tamman's PR is over 21. Eric Favors is 2097. And then, of course, you have Jeff and Luke behind them. But, like, dude, this is also a world champs year, I think, for indoors. I think this is an indoor qualifier. So it'll be very interesting to see, come in the next month or so. I think you and I believe, will be at the indoor national because it's an Ocean Breeze in Staten Island. But yeah, I'm super excited for this competition. All guys are looking fresh. And one last thing I'll say is, like, in regards to Jeff, it's like most people don't talk about how difficult it really is to transition out of college throwing into the post-collegiate realm. Like, that transition of training and life is very difficult. And, it took Jeff some time to adjust to that transition. But I think now we're seeing, like, this is the Jeff that we saw in college that, we think is going to be peppering those far marks like the other guys at GS.
Absolutely.
And we're going to stay on the GS train because something that was kind of shocking in some sense, but maybe not if you're really paying attention. So we have some of our middle school and high school throwers compete at this competition as well. The biggest highlight being, though, Lincoln Miller, Dane's son, who, I've known since he was a baby, threw an insane mark with the 12 pound. So usually he throws and competes with the 4K, but he actually went at this competition. They only had the 12 pound comp. So he's in 8th grade and he threw the 12 pound 52 feet 10 inches, which for retrospect, like the indoor state qualifier for high school states in Pennsylvania is 51 feet. Mm-hmm. He threw almost 2 feet further than the indoor state qualifier as a eighth grader, middle schooler. So he's not eligible to compete in that competition, but that just shows how far a distance like this is for an eighth grader. And then, of course, you had several of your high school and middle school athletes. We'll talk about Lovelin and her throw from another meet after this, but what would you think of Lincoln's performance and then then the performance of all of your high school and middle schoolers this weekend?
Yeah, well, I mean,
because these are athletes you coach. I just want to make this very clear. These are Sam's athletes that he coaches.
Absolutely. I think from a group perspective, we did really, really well. I was very proud of, the accomplishments of every athlete, as a coach. Obviously, some athletes, did really, really well, while others did, well. Obviously, Lincoln being one of the ones who did really, really well. I think the middle school athletes, the biggest thing with them is they train really, really hard and they're getting really strong. That's something that I think is the biggest learning curve for me as a coach is getting these young athletes just, accustomed with training the GS model. And it's something that, they've really kind of just accepted and, the results are really starting to show. And, not to take away from our high school athletes, but I think they're also within that same framework. A lot of them do play other sports and, some of them did, quit their other sports to pursue throwing a little bit more. And, they're also seeing big results like Michael threw 51, just 6 months ago, he was throwing 45, so obviously they're making big results. So I think just as a group perspective, they're all doing great things. And I know that obviously having this performance is just going to spark the fire even more. And I know that they're going to keep attacking as we keep developing. But obviously highlighting the middle schoolers, they really came to play. 52, I threw 52 as a junior in high school.
Same.
This dude is doing that as an eighth grader. Obviously, Landon, he threw 13-26.
He's an eighth grader.
Eighth grader as well. Lovelin, obviously, she went 42 feet. They're really adapting just to the throws you model, the GS model, and they're really benefiting from it.
Yeah, and I want to talk about a little Lovelin in a few minutes here because she actually had a further mark earlier this season, which we didn't address on the throw show yet. That I think really is a testament to your guys' training, but also her potential as an athlete as she gets older. So I also want to highlight the PA number 1, who you guys also train. She's actually local here in Berks County, goes to Wilson High School, Olivia Noecker. 46 feet, 4.5 inches. She's the current state leader only as a sophomore. Mm-hmm. And, that's an incredible mark. I remember she was so happy when she threw 40 feet at nationals this past summer. That was back in June. We're in January and she's added 6.5 feet to her personal best. Mm-hmm. Incredible work on your end. Also at this same meet, this is actually at University of Kutztown. We also have the defending state champion, the shot put, Sophia Rivera. She also threw, 44 feet as well to back up the team that you're producing at the high school level here at Garage Strength locally. What do you think of Olivia's throw here, and what have you guys done to progress her to make such rapid improvements in 6 months?
Yeah, I think it just comes back to the training system. Olivia was a dual sport athlete, and I was like, hey, if you really want to be good, I think we should really just dial into throwing. So this past summer, she finished up her career with softball and has truly committed to throwing. And ever since the end of the summer, we've been locked in, training almost every day, shooting for at least 4 days a week. And I feel like that's because we have that foundation. Now she's getting more throws in, and we're attacking the weight room, we're hitting specific parameters. And I think because we did that, it put her in a spot where she could be successful. And I think out of the 4 competitions she'd had this indoor season, she's PR'd at every single one. Obviously just hitting 46, which is the state lead in PA, and it's the 4th mark in the U.S. at the moment.
Yeah.
She's as a sophomore, not too many people can say that, especially just hitting 40 feet in June to now, throwing 46. So she is definitely one of the athletes who's really kind of benefit from the training system we have here at Throws U and Garage Strength. And, she's one of the leaders of the pack, amongst the group. And, I think a lot of the athletes who are in that system they're going to do extremely well. Like they already have, but it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah, and one thing I always kind of think about, like, to keep this in perspective, it's like this is a mark that would normally get like All-American at Division III level. Even maybe some years get close to winning. And she's doing that as a sophomore. Is she even 16 yet?
I think she's 15 still.
That's insane to me. So you got to think, with it being January, she has another 5 months of the high school season to grow and build on this mark. And, without putting too much pressure on her, I think it's pretty safe to say she's probably going to add to the list of 50-foot girls that we end up coaching in high school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well done on your end, Coach. This is insanely impressive, Mark. And I can also see, like, when I watch you guys practice, like, and when you guys interact at meets, you guys are so positive together. I think the relationship that you guys have is what is great about the sport. Utter positivity and also pushing to be better than you were before.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I wanted to discuss Lovelin. So Lovelin is an 8th grade thrower that we coach. And actually, part of this is also at this meet, she threw over 13 meters, 43 feet 5 inches. That same day, Olivia also threw 44 feet. At the time, that was Olivia's PR. But with Lovelin, I think what's worth discussing is she's only been throwing for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half, 8th grade, 43 feet. I remember when I was in high school, 43 feet would win states.
Yeah.
And I think that was even the same. Like, I think that's what Sophia won outdoor states with, right?
Yeah.
43 feet. So we were talking about an 8th grader who can't even compete in high school yet, basically competing with the top high school girls in the state of Pennsylvania. We've talked about Lovelin a little bit, but I don't think she's had far enough marks to really dive deep into what she's doing. You and Dane have really kind of tag teamed her training as of late. What do you think is special about Lovelin, and how much better do you think she could get?
Yeah, dude, Lovelin is a beast. Like, she is actually out of this world. I think the thing about Lovelin is as she's growing in the system, she's really kind of just finding her competitiveness. I think having Olivia, Sophia, and some of the other girls that we train is really good for Lovelin as an athlete because it just gives her something to drive towards. It gives her that chip on the shoulder, like something to motivate her. And I really see that when I have all 3 of them at practice. Mm-hmm. Lovelin is very quiet. She's not going to say it. Well, she'll tell me, but she won't say it like very outwardly. But I can just see it whenever they're practicing together. Like, Lovelin will really start trying, and she'll start pushing the marks. And I'm a big instigator. Like, yeah. I'll be like, Olivia, you see that? Like, so like, obviously I'm fueling the fire too. But I think Lovelin, she has a lot of potential, and she's really starting to realize what she's fully capable of. And obviously, like, she's still in 8th grade, and there's still a lot of room to grow. It's even crazy to say, like, potential, but, like, dude, like, this girl is probably going to throw 50 probably by her sophomore year. Like, it's very doable. Mm-hmm. And, she's continued to grow. Like, she's going to get bigger. She's going to get stronger. She's going to get more reps under her belt. Like, she's going to be the future of shot put.
It's funny. You were talking a little bit about that because I really want to let people, have people understand when you say Lovelin's quiet. Lovelin
She's
is
quiet.
Very, very quiet to the point where she'll talk to you and it's like you're hearing a mouse whisper and you have to be like, Lovelin, can you speak up? And I only say that because have you ever watched Mucha Lucha as a kid? You remember that show? She always reminded Yes.
Yeah,
she always reminded me of Sweet Pea.
Yeah.
Because she's like the sweetest, she's the sweetest girl you'll meet. Super, super nice, very, very friendly, but just very quiet.
Yeah.
But she's a beast in the circle, and I know for a fact, like if you keep watching the throw show, it's like her, Lincoln, Landon, like all three of them are in 8th grade and they're hitting like marks beyond their years. So you're going to be hearing us talk a lot about them in the future. I think this was almost like the last few weeks, like this indoor season was like the coming out party for all of them, where it's like, okay, they made a statement like on the high school scene that's like, you guys got to pay attention to what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And of course, we've been talking about Throws U athletes, garage strength athletes for the last little while now, but we've had some pretty legitimate results that I think are worth talking that the public should know about. And the reality is like, you have the opportunity to start chasing similar results. You can train with us. You can train with Coach Sam here. You can train with him online. We have various tiers for custom programming. He will work with you individually. He's coaching, well, you've just seen some of the top high schoolers in the country, some of the top middle schoolers, clearly the top middle schoolers in the country. If you want a chance to improve your throw, if you want a chance to get stronger, improve your technique, we cover all of it. Sam, can you kind of just briefly go over like what people can expect if they work with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are interested in leveling up your throws, right, we offer programs that can be specific to you. Everything is based off of time of year. I have it all mapped out, and essentially, given some information like what's your competitive season, what are your goals, how far you're throwing, I'll be able to use that information and create a program specific towards you so that we can make sure that you are reaching your goals. Alongside with that programming, we do offer one-to-one, communication where, I'll hop on a call with you and we'll just kind of discuss like how is training going, how we progress from program to program, and just highlight some of the things that are working and try to eliminate some of the things that aren't, just so that you can get to your goal, right? You can throw far. And, this is something that we provide over at throwsuniversity.com.
Yep. So click the link down in the description and you can join the team. Like that's kind of how we want to build this and start talking about join the team Throws U. And Garage Strength is the #1 private throws group in the entire world. You will challenge us, but you will not be able to find a better throws group with the amount of depth of talent that we've been able to produce. And all these guys are coaching in-house. They do throws, strength, anything you can need to improve yourself as a thrower. Click the link down in the description so you can drop some bombs. So we're going to move on to the NCAA ranks here as we have a new NCAA weight throw leader in Ryan Johnson out of Iowa. He went 24.85 this past weekend. Another huge weight throw PR. He was going big last year. We have two 24-meter throwers right now in Texas Tanner as well as Ryan Johnson. Ryan's peppering close to that 25-meter mark. And just so you're aware, 25.50 is the current NCAA record. I believe it's 25.58. So we have two guys that are peppering close to it. Ryan Johnson's peppering a little closer. Do you think Ryan Johnson's going to get the job done this year? And what do you think of this throw here?
Do I think he could break the record? I say, why not?
Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely a possibility. I feel like these guys are really kind of pushing that barrier, when it comes to just big performances. Obviously, it's fairly early on in January, and we still, we still have a lot of time for the indoor season. So I definitely feel like as these guys are getting good performances in and they're getting into phenomenal shape, they're really going to start, one, breaking that 25-meter barrier, but two, challenging that record and, who knows, throwing, far past that. So I definitely think it's within realm, especially with just the uptick of performances on all levels of throwing. And, I'd be very excited to see it be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's definitely showing that he's capable. He's only within, I think it's like 75 centimeters away from the record. So good luck, Ryan, and great job on this throw. And shout out to Bo Throws for supplying this video here. Bo Throws does a great job promoting the sport of throwing. He gets a lot of access to these big-time throws that maybe might be difficult for us to find. So we have Tarek O'Hagan opening up. He is defending indoor NCAA champion, 2076. Huge throw from Tarek. Tarek is one of those guys. He's like the king of consistency, and he's just the king of getting it done when he needs to get it done. Like he just always performs at his top level at big meets, And what I just noticed is like between like the 2050 to low 21 meter range, it's like his consistency is unlike any other thrower in college right now. And yeah, you know, big, strong dude, Old Miss, John Smith trained. What do you think of Tariq's throw on the right here?
Yeah, no, I like this throw a lot. He looks very smooth from start to finish, and you know you can really tell that by the reverse. Like you can see that he has full control, you know, as he's recovering. Like I know personally when I'm working through, you know, my discus throws, when I reverse like this, like when I can, you know, be stable, I know it was a really good toss. So, you know, just me projecting onto him, like I think, you know, he's in really good shape. Obviously, you know, open up at 2076 is no joke. Like that's a far toss. So, you know, clearly the work that, you know, him and Coach Smith are doing over at Ole Miss is clearly working. And, you know, I do think that, you know, Tariq is probably going to go 21 during, you know, the indoor season and, you know, really kind of just, you know, continue to make a name for himself, you know, throwing extremely far.
Yeah, I would assume so. And kind of what you're saying about the finish is like what I noticed is just he's just getting a lot of reach over the toe board, and he gets all of his energy into the ball to the point where it's like he has a very smooth recovery phase after delivery, meaning he transferred everything into that ball, so he wasn't in danger of fouling because of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you should take away from this throw is like how you can stay grounded long enough. And I think like as another promotion to that lecture that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this video, I'd highly recommend checking out the lecture that Dane does because he goes very deep in discussing like the different double and single support positions throughout the throw, one of them being long double support positions so you can have a long delivery phase, which leads to that big finish. So well done, Tariq. And yeah, I'm excited because I think I'd like to see him break through this year. I know he's gone really hard into doing the shot put hammer duel, but I really want to see him like start pressing out over 70 feet this year, hopefully going over 2150 because I definitely think he's capable.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back to Minnesota here, and Minnesota just has a legacy of pumping out great weight throwers, great hammer throwers. They, of course, had the Greek contingent last year dominating the NCAA. Well, they also have dominant women weight throwers. We talked about their top women weight thrower on the last episode, opening at over 23 meters. Well, they have another women weight thrower throwing over 22 meters in Hadley Straight. Minnesota, like they just know how to throw weight and hammer far. What do you think of Hadley's throw here, and what do you think of this in terms of like the depth of the Minnesota team and what you could do at NCAAs this year?
Yeah, you know, I always see it like, you know, a little bit later in the season, but, you know, all these schools always come out and say, we're the real Throws University, or, you know, we're the Throws U, and I always think that's funny. But, you know, Minnesota, in terms of like weight, obviously right now, and, you know, hammer when they go to the outdoors, I feel like really, you know, challenge that title of Throws U. Obviously, you know, you have, you know, a few other programs that have depth and, you know, have great performances. But I feel like you have to put Minnesota within that conversation. I just feel like they just produce just great athletes and great performances almost every year. And, you know, it's not like it's out of nowhere. Like these are athletes who have been in that system and have been doing well, but are like flourishing, you know, as they progress, you know, through from year to year. And this is one of the athletes. I remember Hadley being at Ramona where, you know, the two Greek hammer throwers were having their, you know, showcase, you know, putting on a show. She was there and she performed really, really well. You know, obviously I think the highlight was those guys because they put on an absolute show, but she did really well during the, you know, hammer competition. And it's like, okay, you know, clearly she has a good foundation, you know, she's building on that. And, you know, now she's going 22 and, you know, she's probably going to continue to get better. So I definitely think when you're thinking of Minnesota, like they're definitely challenging like the title of Throws U, and they're just going to keep getting better and better each year.
Yeah, and I kind of like what you say about the Throws U thing. I almost kind of sparked an idea in my head. Like, one, I think we should try to run a poll come the outdoor season of like doing a bracket style tournament where people get to vote on who the real Throws U is in the NCAA. I think that would be fun. I think fans would like that. But then I also think that maybe at the end of the outdoor season and as we total up like all the distances and all like the analytics and stuff, I think it'd be cool if we did like a throw show where it's like, who do we think, the real throws you is, like in terms of like who was able to get the most amount of people to like, hit certain distances that would total. Like I think like I'll talk to like someone like Ryan Hirschberger because he's really big into like creating databases and stuff like that, and he is a former throws coach. And he could probably lay out exactly like how that could look like. But I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
And we're going to close out here, and I wanted to finish off here because ultimately, if you're a thrower, a throws coach, and especially those that are even in the Garage Strength and Throws U system, we owe a great debt to Dr. Anatoliy Bondarchuk. Dr. Bondarchuk passed away a few weeks ago at the tail end of 2025. He was a massive influence on the world of throwing. Widely considered the greatest hammer throws coach of all time. He coached the men's world record holder, Yuri Sadiq. He was also like tied to / responsible for multiple Olympic champions in the 80s and early 90s. Like, just to kind of give you a brief rundown, like in 1972, he won the Olympics in the hammer throw for the USSR. In 1976, he coached Yuri Sadiq to win his first Olympic title. And Dr. B was also third in that competition.
So wasn't he on the podium?
Yeah, he was also on the podium. And that's why he realized he was done as a hammer thrower and he was a better coach when he coached the Olympic champion as a competitive athlete. In 1980, granted, the United States didn't compete, but that doesn't really matter too much, especially in the hammer throw. But Yuri Sadiq defended that Olympic title in 1980. And then, obviously, Soviet Union didn't compete in 84. But then Sergei Litvinov, who Dr. B was also working with, maybe not as closely as Sadiq, but definitely impacted his career, won the Olympics there. And then in 1992, he was coaching Abdevaliev, who won that Olympic title. And I believe everyone who made the podium in 1992 competed for what was called the United Team, but they were all former Soviet countries. And Dr. B trained all of them. Mm-hmm. I think he was responsible for at least 10 different 80-meter hammer throwers. And then his legacy can be seen nowadays by him coaching athletes like Dylan Armstrong. He was a bronze medalist at the Beijing Olympics. He was a silver medalist at the 2011 World Championships in the shot put. Formed an entire training group around Dylan's training as a shot putter, which then became like the legendary Kamloops Training Club, which Coach Dane Miller, our mutual coach, owner of Throws University and Garage Strength, he went to train with Dr. B for a year back in 2007, 2008. Took a lot of Dr. B's training methods, brought it back to the United States, and laid the foundation for what we're doing now and became the model for Garage Strength athletes as a whole. He also was responsible for coaching Justin Rohde, who brought that same knowledge back to the United States. Justin was a 21-meter thrower for Canada, then for the United States. Responsible for athletes like Kibwe Johnson, who was the first 80-meter thrower since Lance Deal for the United States. Responsible not only for producing an astounding amount of athletes, but just an astounding amount of coaches who learned from his principles. I think one last athlete thing I'll touch on is with him coaching Dylan Armstrong to those medals. Dylan went on to become the coach of Ethan Katzberg, who is probably going to go on to be the greatest hammer thrower for men of all time, clean. Mm-hmm. Dr. B, you can't name a thrower who wasn't at least somewhat influenced by his teachings.
Absolutely.
We want to pay respects to Dr. Bondarchuk, everything, all of his contributions to the sport. And also, to be honest, I don't think Throws U and Garage Strength would be what it is now without Dr. B's influence on Dane.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think just in the realm of sports performance, Dr. B has created a lot of the principles that we use, to this day. Obviously, in the throws, he's done, phenomenal things, but I think a lot of the core concepts that he's been involved into creating and putting out into the world has been a training tool for several other sports. I know for myself personally, I'm a throws coach, I'm a sports performance coach, and I do like, looking on Instagram, TikTok, just seeing other sports coaches. And a lot of, other sports coaches do reference Dr. B and his work, alongside, special strength exercises and, just going from simple to complex and just specificity as a whole as a training concepts. A lot of that information does come from Dr. B and his origins of hammer throw and obviously on the sports performance side. So without him, I think sports wouldn't be as great, not just throwing, but sports in general wouldn't be as great without, his contributions. So obviously, Dr. B paid away for not just throws, but a lot of different avenues in, sports. And, he's been a big pivotal figure just in sports performance.
Yeah, I mean, like, he really changed the way people thought about how you should train for sports. I think he was a leader in really discussing the concept of dynamic correspondence, using different lifts that are similar movement patterns to your sport. I think there's been a lot that has been evolved on Dr. B's training that we've taken to improve it in the last few years. But a lot of that stuff was still innovative even back in like the early 2010s because the Soviet models, just the information wasn't out there back then. But I hope that, with things like Garage Strength Throws University, with the information that we've been able to put out in our videos, we can be a little bit part of Dr. B's legacy for willingness to share information, to help grow strength and conditioning and throws in general, to advance the sport forward. So I think just in final, thank you, Dr. Bondarchuk, for everything you've done. I don't think Sam and I would even be in this place right now if it weren't for your contributions to the sport. So thank you very much, and rest in peace.